Hi everyone, and welcome to Lesson 8 of IQ Designer and My Design Center. There is an included accessory that comes with your machine that is often overlooked, and it really can give you many hours of creativity and enjoyment, and that is your scan mat right here. So a lot of people don't use this or maybe don't know what it does. So I'm going to show you how to use this scan mat on your machine. All right, so looking at the scan mat itself, what you never want to do is cover up your white and black color balance bars. You always want to leave those open. You don't want to take whatever you're scanning and cover them up. Next thing you're going to need, you have magnets. Now your magnets, when you place them on your board, I always tell students to, I think I got two here, no this is one. Always place them in a horizontal position. I'm going to have to bend mine because they're a little curvy at the end on some of them. You want to place your magnets horizontal or vertical, and there's going to be a reason why, and I'm going to show you when we actually get to the scanning part. And I like to put mine either at the sides or at the top and bottom, but definitely vertical and horizontal, because when you go to do something called cropping, having your magnets at an angle can really be, it's not problematic and it's not terrible, but what you may be doing is creating more work for yourself in the long run if you do it this way. So just make sure everything is horizontal and vertical. Do you have to use all your magnets? No. If you have a small design, you can take these magnets off, move them up, use as many magnets as you need, but what you want to make sure you do is make sure your edges are down and make sure you have a good quality picture that you want to scan, and we're going to talk about that next. So let's say you're ready to scan. Where do you go to get the printables to scan? Well, it's as easy as doing a Google search. You can go and Google coloring book pages for adults and kids on specific topics, and you can also grab a Sharpie, just a regular Sharpie, not a fine line, not a thick one, and choose a black Sharpie to get the best possible line so that your machine will have a much easier way to pick up that line when you draw it. All right, so what I did was I did a Google search on several things, and the first one I did was mandala designs, and this one right here, if you look at this mandala design, I specifically picked this one for the crisp uniform lines, and these are the lines that will scan the best. They're not too thick, they're not too thin, and very easy for the camera scanner to pick it up. Here's another one. Again, this is a sample of a great design to scan, and this would be perfect as, to make an embroidery design out of. But then let's look at other ones that may not give as good of a scan, and what I mean not as good. Sometimes you may get an error saying that there's too much information for the machine to process. The design might be too complex, and that might be as easy as erasing part of a design so that you can still use most of what you want. But if you look at this one, and we're going to see how this one will scan. Do you see how some of the lines are thinner and some of the lines are thicker? That may or may not give you a great scan. If you look inside at the center, you have areas that are more like regions than lines. So we're going to see how this one turns out, because sometimes you get unexpected scans and you may not know how to deal with them, and I'll help you with that. All right, so here's another one. This is my kitty cat, and if you look right here, this may be too complex for the machine. There's a lot of intricate detail, and we have to remember that IQ Designer and My Design Center does not take the place of using software. Some things you have to use software to get an embroidery design out of, and this one might be too complex for the machine. So that's where software really can come into play. This one right here, we're going to try scanning this one. I thought this was kind of neat. And also what I want to show you is how to take out parts of a design that maybe you don't want. Now this design in itself, you may get an error that says the design is too complex for the machine, but sometimes just taking out a certain part of that will render it a useful design that you can digitize. So we'll experiment with this using the eraser tool as well. All right, last but not least, I have a mermaid, and here again, we're going to try to scan this, see what happens. I am looking at this line right here, and I specifically picked this design for that thick line so you can see how it scans under a line drawing, because most of these printables that I printed out, because they're black and white, you would automatically think that they're a line drawing, but not necessarily. Sometimes it's better to use the illustration or the color option than a line drawing, and you're going to see why. All right, so let's go over to the machine and I'm going to show you how to put this scan mat on. What I did right here is I took off my A-arm, and every time I take off my A-arm, I always like to immediately put my screws back in so I don't lose them. But your scan mat is going to be attached directly to that machine, so I'm going to attach it to my machine and I'm going to show you in the back exactly how it attaches so you'll know what it looks like. Right now my scan mat is attached to the machine, and what I do, this is my A-arm right here, I leave that large screw in, but the two screws that we normally put over here just to store in our arm, those two screws are going to screw in our scan mat. Now there is a hole in the scan mat right here, and there is a pin that sticks up from the machine right there. So the first screw, smaller screw, goes in that second hole, and then there is a hole over here. There's another pin in the machine that's poking up right there, and then I put that second smaller screw right over there. I went into IQ Designer or My Design Center, and it automatically moved the carriage over to this location. So it really made it easy to put the scan mat on. All right, so we're ready to scan, but I'm going to leave you hanging because you're going to have to watch in lesson 9. We're going to go right to the scan. So what do you have to do in the meantime? I want you to search on the internet, look for printables, look for coloring book pages, have your grandchildren or your children draw a picture with a black Sharpie. Just watch them with that black Sharpie because we know how kids can get. All right, so get ready, get your scan mat out, get your magnets out, put it on your mat, and then you will be ready for lesson 9 on IQ Designer and My Design Center. Thanks for watching.